Welcome back, everybody. We are very thrilled to have as our last session of the day, one on science communication, specifically the power of storytelling in scientific communications. And joining us is Andy Robinson. I've had the privilege of working with Andy for a few years in prior roles and assignments. Andy is the Chief Operating Officer and CEO of Hijinks Marketing. She is an adjunct professor at Butler University, where she teaches marketing and the Lacey School of Business. And she is the author of the book, The Content Puzzle. So Andy, we're going to hand you presenting rights and let you share your stuff. The presenting rights should have just come over. Perfect. Yep. We look great. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So hello and welcome to our discussion this afternoon about the importance of storytelling in scientific communications. Today, we're going to uncover how the art of storytelling can transform the scientific discourse. First, a little bit about me. As Wendelin said, I'm a content operations consultant and I own Hijinks Marketing. I am an author of the book called The Content Puzzle and the Missing Piece, and I am a professor of marketing at the Lacey School of Business at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. Feel free to connect with me across all major social networks. I'm at Hijinks Marketing everywhere. So I don't need to tell this audience why scientific communications are vital, particularly in our current era of misinformation. Effective scientific communication can draw public attention to important issues such as climate change, public health crises, or technological advancements. By presenting these topics in a comprehensible and engaging manner, it helps raise awareness among a broader audience. It plays a crucial role in informing society about the latest developments, potential threats, and opportunities in various scientific fields. This awareness is crucial for individuals to understand the implications of these developments on their lives and on their environment. Good scientific communication translates complex scientific concepts into understandable language, making science accessible to people without specialized knowledge. Effective communication of science can inspire curiosity and interest in younger generations, potentially leading to more individuals pursuing STEM careers. Scientific communications help demystify the research process, explaining how scientists reach conclusions, the methodologies they use, and the limitations of their studies. Transparency in communication builds trust between the scientific community and the public. When people understand the process and the reasoning behind scientific conclusions, they're more likely to trust and support scientific endeavors. Clear and transparent communication is key in combating misinformation and pseudoscience, which can spread quickly without reliable, accessible scientific information. And lastly, policymakers rely on scientific communication to understand complex issues and base their decisions on evidence. Clear communication ensures that policymakers have the accurate information they need. Well-communicated science is essential for developing responsible and effective policies in areas like environmental regulation, health policy, and technological ethics. Scientific communication faces several challenges that can hinder the dissemination of effective scientific communication and public understanding of scientific communications. Many scientific concepts and findings are inherently complex and can be difficult to explain in simple terms. This complexity can create barriers to understanding, especially for non-expert audiences. The rise of social media and the internet has led to the rapid spread of misinformation and pseudoscience. Distinguishing credible scientific information from false or misleading claims can be challenging for the public. Scientific language is often filled with technical jargon, which can be inaccessible to those without specialized knowledge. Communicating scientific ideas without relying on complex terminology is a significant challenge. There can be a general skepticism or distrust towards science and scientific authorities in some segments of the public. Various factors, including cultural, political, or religious beliefs, can fuel this skepticism. In a media landscape dominated by sensational and emotionally charged stories, science stories often struggle to gain attention unless they are groundbreaking or controversial. And this can lead to important but less newsworthy scientific findings being overlooked. Ensuring that scientific communication reaches a diverse and wide audience is a challenge. Accessibility issues can arise due to socioeconomic, educational, or geographic factors, limiting the reach of scientific communication. Overcoming these challenges requires a concerted effort from scientists, from communicators, educators, and even media professionals. Strategies like simplifying language without losing the accuracy of the data, engaging storytelling, leveraging diverse media platforms, and building trust through transparency and consistent engagement can help mitigate these challenges, making scientific communication more effective and far-reaching. Throughout history, the use of storytelling in scientific communications has been a pivotal tool for some of the greatest minds, like Galileo and Einstein, in presenting their groundbreaking discoveries. These scientific luminaries didn't just share data and facts, they crafted narratives that captivated the imagination, fundamentally altering our perception of the universe and of our environment. Their stories did more than inform. They connected with the audience on a human level, touching emotions and allowing people to feel the significance and the implications of their work. This emotional engagement is crucial in scientific communication, as it transforms abstract concepts into tangible realities that resonate with people's lives and with their experiences. When scientists use storytelling, they don't just convey information, they create an experience that invites the audience to be part of their scientific journey, fostering a deeper appreciation and understanding of the subject matter. In essence, the legacies of scientists like Galileo and Einstein in using storytelling highlights its enduring power in scientific discourse. It underscores the fact that at the heart of science, beyond the numbers and beyond the experiments, are human stories waiting to be told. Stories that can change perspectives, ignite curiosity, and shape our understanding of the world. As we continue to advance in scientific knowledge, embracing storytelling in our communications can bridge the gap between the scientific community and the public, making science more accessible, relatable, and impactful. By integrating storytelling, we can increase the retention of that scientific information and make science more appealing to the public. Scientific concepts can often be complex, abstract, and difficult for non-experts to understand. Storytelling helps to translate these concepts into narratives that are more relatable and easier to grasp. By weaving facts into a story, scientists and educators can make the information more digestible and engaging for a broader audience. Stories are more memorable than disjointed facts. When scientific information is presented as a narrative with characters and conflicts and resolutions, it becomes easier for people to remember and recall that information. Storytelling can create emotional connections between the audience and the subject matter. This emotional engagement is crucial in scientific communications as it can drive interest, curiosity, and a deeper appreciation of scientific topics. Through storytelling, scientists can also illustrate the human impact of scientific discoveries and issues. This can foster empathy and understanding, especially in fields like medicine, environmental science, and social research. Good storytelling in science doesn't just present facts, it often raises questions, presents dilemmas, or explores different scenarios. This can encourage critical thinking, prompting audiences to think more deeply about the scientific issues and their implications. In areas like environmental conservation, public health, and technology ethics, stories that highlight the consequences of action or inaction can motivate people to change their behaviors or to support certain policies. Storytelling can be a tool for interdisciplinary communication, helping to bridge the gap between different scientific disciplines or between science and the humanities. It provides a common language that can be understood across various fields. Stories about scientists, their discoveries, their struggles, and their triumphs can humanize the scientific process. The demystification can encourage more people to pursue science and understand its relevance in everyday life. Storytelling in science is not just about making science entertaining, it's about making it accessible, making it memorable and relevant, and fostering a deeper understanding and an appreciation of scientific knowledge and its impact on our world. The storytelling arc, which is often called the narrative arc, is a classic and widely used storytelling structure that outlines a story's progression. It's a model used to construct a story in a compelling and satisfying way for their audience. The arc is generally composed of several stages. The setup is the story's beginning, where the setting, the characters, and the initial situation are introduced. It sets the stage for the story, providing the background information necessary for understanding the context of the narrative. The inciting incident is the event that sets the main story in motion. It disrupts the balance of the world as established in the setup, compelling your protagonist to take action. This incident is crucial as it hooks the audience's interest and propels the story forward. Following the inciting incident, the story builds up through a series of events and conflicts. The protagonist faces challenges and obstacles that create tension and suspense. This part of the story is crucial for character development and for escalating the narrative towards its climax. The climax is the story's turning point, usually the most intense and dramatic moment of the story. It is the point of highest tension, where the protagonist confronts the main conflict head on. The outcome of the climax sets the direction for the rest of the story. The story begins to wind down after that climax. The falling action involves the consequences or the results of the climax. It leads towards the resolution, resolving any remaining subplots and easing the tension from the climax. And then you have the resolution, the conclusion of the story. In this stage, the conflicts are resolved, the story reaches a closure, The resolution ties up any loose ends and often provides a final insight into the characters or the story's overall message. The narrative arc is a fundamental framework in storytelling, used in various formats of literature, film, theater, even in marketing. It helps in structuring the story in a way that is engaging and emotionally resonant, guiding the audience through a journey that is both coherent and satisfying. So let's take a little deeper look at some of these stages. In the setup, imagine your audience stepping into the heart of your scientific narrative, whether you're talking about climate issues, medicine, food science, technology. They are the central characters whose experience is paramount in the story. As they journey through the discovery process, consider how each breakthrough impacts their life and how every innovation has shaped their world. They're not just a passive listener, but they're an active participant in the unfolding story of science. This is your first opportunity to create an emotional connection with your audience. The path of your audience, remember your audience members are the characters of your story, intertwines with your scientific endeavors. Every step they take aligns with the steps that you take in pursuit of scientific innovation. The plot of your research narrative is a reflection of their journey through life's challenges. The story's climax isn't just about your scientific discovery, it's your audience's moment of realizing that discovery's significance. It's when they understand that your scientific breakthroughs are not just abstract concepts, but real-world solutions that will shape their future. The story's resolution is when they take the understanding of your discoveries and envision how they will change their world, share the stories, and make them part of their own narrative. You can use many different techniques to incorporate storytelling in your communications. These are a few. A flashback is a scene that takes the narrative back in time from the current point the story has reached. This technique provides context or background information that helps the audience understand their current situation, the motivations of the characters, or the origins of the conflict. Flashbacks can be presented through memories, dreams, or even through stories told by the characters. They're a powerful way to reveal hidden histories or secrets that shape the present narrative. For example, a flashback might show a pivotal moment in the protagonist's childhood that explains their current fears or hopes. Foreshadowing is a way of hinting at or setting up an event that will occur later in the story. It creates the anticipation in the audience and prepares them for what is to come without revealing the story or spoiling the suspense. Foreshadowing can be subtle, such as a dialogue that hints at future events, or more direct, like a prologue that sets the stage for the conflict that will unfold. It can be seen as a way of planting seeds in the audience minds that will grow as the story progresses. Stream of consciousness is the narrative technique that seeks to capture the myriad thoughts and feelings that pass through the mind in a continuous flow. Rather than presenting a straightforward chronological narrative, this technique mirrors the natural, often chaotic thought patterns that humans experience. It's an attempt to document the interior emotional and cognitive world of characters, providing a window into their consciousness that can include memories, associated thoughts, feelings, and reflections. The epistolary storytelling technique involves constructing a narrative through a series of documents, traditionally letters or other forms of communication. This format allows the story to be told through the correspondence of one or more characters, offering a first-person perspective and a sense of immediacy or intimacy. Visuals are crucial in making data relatable and memorable while maintaining accuracy. Complex scientific concepts often involve intricate details that can be challenging to grasp through text alone. Visuals can simplify these concepts, making them more accessible and easier to understand. Imagine trying to understand the structure of an atom through text alone. Now picture it as a miniature solar system with electrons orbiting the nucleus like planets around the sun. Or trying to communicate the power of climate change around the world with a list of data versus a map with key data attached to the various geographies. Using visuals provides a lens through which complex scientific data becomes a clear, relatable story. These tools don't just simplify information, they enrich your audience's understanding by connecting new ideas to familiar experiences and formats. Humans are naturally drawn to visual content. Incorporating visuals into scientific storytelling can capture and retain the audience's attention more effectively than text-heavy presentations. Engaging visuals can turn a mundane presentation into an intriguing and memorable experience. Compare a dense block of text detailing the importance of polysaccharides and low-fat ice cream with a visual image that calls out the key data points that the communication is trying to get across. Visuals aid in memory retention as well. People are more likely to remember information presented visually than information presented in text form only. This is due to something called the picture superiority effect, where images are more easily encoded into long-term memory. As you can see from these charts, after consuming information through text or audio alone, humans are more likely to remember only 10% of that information after 3 days. If that information is presented to us as a combination of text with relevant imagery, we are likely to remember 65% of that information 3 days later. Visuals can evoke emotions, which is a powerful tool in storytelling. Emotional engagement can make the audience more receptive to the message being communicated and can drive home the impact of scientific findings in real-world issues. So what does this look like in practicality? One organization that has used storytelling in scientific communications is the United Nations. Specifically, let's look at the United Nations Climate Change Storybook. The UN, through various initiatives, has long been involved in raising awareness about climate change. Their Climate Change Storybook was part of these efforts, aiming to personalize the global challenge of climate change. This initiative collected real-life stories from individuals around the world, each sharing their unique experiences with climate change. These stories included personal accounts from people directly affected by climate change, like farmers, fishermen, and families living in vulnerable geographic areas. By presenting these diverse and personal narratives, the UN was able to put a human face on the often abstract and overwhelming issue of climate change. This approach made the problem more relatable and understandable for a global audience, fostering empathy and a sense of urgency to take action. As noted by the UN in this quote on their website, storytelling is a tool that can bring us together and foster a common ground on which meaningful change may take root. While individual climate stories are unique, when combined, they have the capacity to change the narrative and drive collective change. Another example is Novartis Patient Stories series. Novartis often uses patient stories to communicate the impact of their medical treatments. This is part of their larger strategy to illustrate the real-world benefits of their pharmaceutical products. In their Patient Stories series, Novartis highlighted individual patients' journeys with various diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and autoimmune disorders. These stories focused on how specific Novartis treatments helped improve, or in some cases, dramatically change the patient's quality of life. This storytelling approach made the benefits of their drugs more relatable and understandable to the general public. By focusing on personal experiences, Novartis was able to humanize complex medical information and demonstrate the real-world impacts of their products beyond just the clinical data. Launched in 2008, IBM's Smarter Planet campaign was a major initiative to showcase how technology and data analytics can be used to make the world more efficient, sustainable, and connected. IBM used various storytelling methods, including personal narratives, case studies, and real-world examples to demonstrate the impact of their technologies. For instance, they shared stories of cities that implemented smart grids to reduce energy consumption, or hospitals that use data analytics to improve patient care. These stories help to illustrate abstract technological concepts in a tangible way. By showing real-life applications and outcomes of their technologies, IBM was able to communicate the practical benefits and innovations of their products and services to a very broad audience. This approach not only promoted their technology, but also fostered a greater understanding of the potential of data analytics and smart technology in addressing societal and environmental challenges. I always like to leave people with something that they can do right now or when they return to their office. So how can you take this information and apply it to your next communication or campaign? Before you plan, ask yourself these questions. What is the key scientific concept or finding that needs to be communicated? How does storytelling help in conveying this message clearly and accurately? Who are you trying to reach with your communication? What are their interests, their background, their knowledge, potential biases or misconceptions about the topic? What are their needs and their desires? Are you aiming to educate, to inform, inspire, or persuade? And how does storytelling align with and support your objectives? How can you ensure that the storytelling approach does not compromise the scientific accuracy of the information? Which storytelling techniques are most suitable for the message and for the audience? How will you deal with the complexity of scientific concepts in a storytelling format without oversimplifying it? What emotional response might your story elicit? And is this appropriate and beneficial for your communications goals? Can the story be adapted or modified based on audience feedback or changing circumstances or different geographies? Storytelling in scientific communications is a powerful tool to bridge the gap between complex scientific concepts and a broader audience, making the information more accessible and relatable. By weaving data and facts into compelling narratives, it not only enhances understanding, but also fosters a deeper engagement and appreciation for scientific discoveries and insights. As we saw in the examples of the United Nations Climate Change Storybook, the Novartis Patient Stories, and IBM's Smarter Planet campaign, Using storytelling techniques in complex scientific communications can yield many positive outcomes. The future potential of storytelling in science is immense, particularly as evolving trends continue to reshape how scientific information is communicated. The rise of social media and online communities has democratized the dissemination of scientific information, providing both opportunities and challenges. Scientific communicators need to make their content compelling and memorable to their audience, encouraging them to see how your discoveries have made an impact on their lives. As the world faces critical challenges like climate change and health pandemics, the role of storytelling in science becomes even more crucial. It can be used to convey the urgency and relevance of these issues in a way that statistics alone cannot, potentially driving policy change and public action. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andy. Really do appreciate your walking us through the narrative arc. I will readily admit, as a scientist, I don't tend to think a whole lot that way around a narrative arc, you know, as we're doing communications. But it's bringing up a couple of thoughts that I wanted to, dare I say, start with. And I know you've worked with a lot of high-tech companies, a lot of scientists. And one of your opening premises related to connecting the emotional aspect, right? You need to connect in with the emotions. And scientists will tell you that they don't have any emotions, okay? So, you know, as you're thinking about it, and as our audience is perhaps listening to you and going, yeah, okay, I get it, but how on earth do I tell my team? How on earth do I tell my teammates that we've got to make it much more tangible, right? I know you've had these after I've had these conversations. Yeah. What advice do you have for people who are trying to compel a different way than just, well, here's the long data tables?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I'm actually going to say data. Yeah. But really, I mean, looking at these campaigns that other organizations have put together and the resulting benefits of those, I would also say something that I have seen organizations do in the past is to do a pilot. You know, you don't have to go full force with something like this right away. You can start with something small and see what results you get. Do a little bit of testing and, you know, see if what you're putting together is actually resonating with your audience. If it's moving the conversation in the direction that you want it to move in. So that's definitely, I know it's a challenge to get an organization that's very scientifically aligned, very R&D focused, to, you know, to kind of shift a little bit to this more narrative storytelling. In my world, we call it content marketing type approach. But it takes a lot of conversations and, you know, kind of show them the money, for lack of a better phrase, show them how these other organizations have used storytelling in their efforts, their communications, and what results they've garnered from that.
Great, thanks. Another question is related to that fear of oversimplification, right? Which is, yeah, anyway, I'm seeing this a bit as a trend. I don't know that it's as bad as it quote used to be, but this fear that if I turn, and you had a great example with using ice cream, okay, where, wait a second, if I turn this into something that's cutesy, one, I'm not going to be taken seriously, as the science is going to not be taken seriously. And two, wait a second, you're going to lose the important nuance that I was trying to make. So how do you help guide scientists through that just deeply held concern that, wait a second, no, it's got to be complex, when actually it doesn't, right? You and I know that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it all starts with knowing your audience, because I think that you can use varying degrees of visual storytelling in your communications depending on who your audience is. So you have your you kind of have a range of audiences and their understanding of scientific concepts. So if you're trying to get a very complex scientific point or information out to a relatively unscientific audience, let's say the general public, then you're going to go as simplistic as you can while retaining the non-negotiable data that needs to be in as part of that communication. And that's one of the first things you need to determine as well, is what are your non-negotiables? What is the data that absolutely has to get across in these communications? So, you may go a lot more simplistic with a more general consumer audience. You may have an audience that is kind of somewhere in the middle, that has some scientific knowledge, higher education possibly, or a greater understanding of the general scientific topic. And you might be able to go a little bit deeper with some of the data with that audience. And then obviously with your very scientific audience, like the Science and Innovation Showcase, you're going to have a lot of scientific data. It might not be appropriate to use a storytelling technique for if you're going directly out to other scientists. So I would say, definitely know your audience. And then, when it comes to that information that you need to convey, just making sure that you know the information, the data points that you want to get across. And you don't have to do it all in one communication. You can break it up. You can have, use storytelling and have multiple data points across several, different types of communication. So you could have a social media post series, for example. You could send out a series of tweets over time that kind of tell the story and include the various data points that you want to include. You don't have to include it all in one communication.
Oh, that's actually a really good point, and it actually brings up one of the questions that we have coming in, which is, if you think about, quote, we'll say the TikTok consumer, okay, right? Your professional perspective, right? Are they willing to invest the time to immerse in that storytelling experience? Or are they just looking for something that is, dare I say, quick and cute versus something that kind of has that narrative arc with the build, the conflict, and the resolution? Yeah, thoughts on that?
Again, I think it depends on your audience that you're trying to go after, and the topic of the communication. Yes, the TikTok crowd, and I'm one of those. Sometimes depending on the topic, I follow a lot of farmers on TikTok because I worked in the agricultural field. And sometimes I will sit there and watch a 10-minute long video from the onion farmer, because it's really interesting what he's talking about. Whereas, other scientific topics I may not have an interest in, and I may just, kind of want something quick or more on the entertaining side. So really knowing and understanding the audience that you're trying to reach. You don't have to, go out to a super broad audience. You need to be very specific about who you're trying to reach with that communication. And like I said, do a little testing, send out some of those, maybe longer videos if you're talking TikTok or YouTube or, Instagram Reels, send out some of those kind of midway along or mid-size videos and see how long people watch it. All of these platforms, whether it be YouTube or even your email platforms, things like that, will give you data about how long people are watching, how long people are reading, what they're clicking on. So go back to the data and see how people are interacting with your content or not interacting with your content, and then adjust from there. So do a little testing and see, test the waters and see how things go, and adjust.
That's That's really good advice, because it's something that I know, you know, personally reflecting on my career going from R&D into marketing, was how much data was actually used in marketing, right? Versus what I thought as a scientist, if you're not in the lab, then there's no data, right? So fascinating.
There's a lot of data in marketing.
There is a lot of data. So we have a question that's come in from one of the attendees, who actually is a reviewer and journal editor in the food and nutrition space. And this question has to do with generative AI, right? Artificial intelligence. So one would love to get your thoughts on that kind of in general, which I'm sure would go for a bit. But the question is, recognizing that many scientists are really not good writers, okay? All right. We're terrible writers, or we can be. You know, is there value in maybe applying artificial intelligence to write that entertaining lay version of the science to go ahead to help kind of get that communication component out there? What would be your thoughts there?
Yeah, AI is a topic that I hear about multiple times a day. I was actually on a podcast recently, so if you find me on LinkedIn, you can find the recording of it. I was on a podcast about AI and creating content using AI, but built for humans. And you have to be really careful when dealing with AI around scientific topics. AI is a tool, generative AI is a tool. That's all it is. It's not meant to kind of wholesale replace what you're doing or what you're writing. It takes a lot of knowledge to understand how to prompt it correctly to get the right replies. And when you're talking about scientific knowledge, generative AI tools can, what they call, hallucinate. Basically, they can make stuff up. And so we want to make sure that if we are, you know, trying to put scientific information out there and we're using generative AI to write for us, we're not taking it wholesale. You may put a prompt into an AI tool, into ChatGPT or whatever you're using, and it comes out with something that looks really great. It's 3 paragraphs, and you know, you glance over it and it sounds really good. But I wouldn't just take that and post it or share it. Make sure you're adding your own voice to it, and make sure that everything in it is accurate. So a lot of people use AI for, you know, a lot of different things, and there are different tools and how they are their large language models and what those large language models are trained on, the data that they're trained on. So general tools like ChatGPT and Bard from Google and Bing's Copilot, a lot of those are built on the internet. They're taught by all of the information on the internet, but there are also closed AI platforms that you can put data into and it will learn on that specific data. So it's a whole, there's, you know, there's whole organizations that deal with generative AI, so I won't go too far into that. But to answer the attendee's question, I would say play around with it. You're not going to break it. When ChatGPT first came out last fall, I prompted it by saying, I have these things in my kitchen, create me a recipe. And it created a recipe. I asked it to write some code for my website, and it wrote code for my website. So just play around with it, and you know, see what you come out of it. But don't take what ChatGPT or any of these tools give you and just take it wholesale. Make sure that you're putting your own voice into it, your own tone, including anything that is more human or personal in nature, and you know, use that instead of just copying and pasting. We don't want it to hallucinate.
Yeah, no, that's really good input, because there's often a lot of errors, right? Having played a little bit with it, I never thought about the recipes though. I'll have to give that a try. So, you know, Andy, you started your presentation by talking about the importance of of storytelling in light of the abundance of misinformation and even disinformation out there. Okay, so I'll also preface this, Andy, with we'll make this your last question, okay, so that you can relax. With that, do you have any specific suggestions for how to use storytelling to dispel strongly held misinformation, right? And I'm calling out misinformation, but it's a disinformation, because that can be we'll call it misinformation. How to dispel misinformation.
I would say two things. Consistency matters. A lot of the disinformation is such a problem, particularly across social media, but also in the broader internet of things. And so having a consistent, clear message, I think is important. So if there is a piece of information out there that is inaccurate, make sure that you are putting out the correct information, and do it on a very consistent basis. You can't just do it once. You need to continue to promote that message. I'll talk about another agriculture reference, because that's what I have a lot of experience with, Farm Babe, who is out there across all of the social channels. She does a great job of combating misinformation in the agricultural space. And she does it with a little bit of levity, a little bit of human side of her, but she can be forceful when she needs to as well. So I would say consistency. I would also say transparency. One thing that misinformation, disinformation campaigns do not have is transparency. That is what gives real scientific information an advantage. They're not being transparent because they don't have facts on their side. And so the more transparent you can be about your scientific information that you're trying to put out into the world, I think people will see that. I'm really hoping there's a tipping point here soon, because all of the disinformation out there can be overwhelming. So hopefully, my presentation will help with that, and the scientific communicators who are hearing this will take to heart those couple of things.
Great, that is perfect, and that's also a good link, which I would pull in part that consistency of message becomes really important as scientists go to communicate their work, right? It's what goes on all the time in the marketing space, right? So for our attendees who work for industry, you have a marketing team, they're telling you to stay on brand. There's usually a reason. That can almost translate very parallel as scientists, perhaps working the R&D side to make sure that we're consistent. Yes, we have to talk about the breakthroughs, but once you know it, be consistent about it, right? So that is brilliant. So Andy, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Very much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Very, very insightful. So last thing before we let Andy go, because I want to do this. She has published a book on content marketing, which is really about making sure you think through all the way what you need to be saying, who you need to be saying it to, and doing that right type of segmentation. So Hijinks Marketing, I know, is where Andy can be found. So please, everyone, take a look at that book, particularly if you're looking to figure out how to communicate better your science. Marketing experts know how to do this. So thank you, Andy.
I will add that the book is called The Content Puzzle and the Missing Piece, and the missing piece is all about the psychology of your audience. So for your scientifically minded folks, there is a bit of science in there. It talks about the science of colors, the science of fonts, and storytelling, and emotions, and actions, and things like that. So.
Perfect. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for correcting me on that.
No, you said it right. I just wanted to add that piece.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, everyone, knowing that we've been going for a couple hours here, want to move on and start to close out our time here. Want to start by thanking all of our presenters today from the Federal Trade Commission, from FDA, from researchers who are working on the portfolio diet, who were our next generation speakers today, right? They are in graduate school and doing postdocs. Want to thank all of you for attending today and engaging with us with the questions. Please continue to connect with us, collaborate with us, because together we can catalyze the science that matters. We do have a website, and of course we are on social media, including LinkedIn. And with that, I hope everybody will join us tomorrow, where we will hear from a series of next generation scientists, as well as have a session with the Good Food Institute on careers and career opportunities in the alternative protein space, because you can't talk about innovation and science in food and beverage right now without talking about alternative proteins. So with that, thank you everyone for your time and attention, and see you all tomorrow. Thanks.